Hello, everybody, and we are here, and I'm very lucky to be here with Jelena Hofmann, and she is the founder of Mykke Hofmann, which is a wonderful, sustainable, eco-friendly, lovely circular fashion line of clothing. How are you, Jelena?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm pretty well. I'm pretty well. I've been better, but I've been worse, so I'm not gonna.
I guess like many of us, yeah.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
that's fine enough.
yeah. So you are currently in Serbia, right? That's where your factories are located?
Exactly. Yeah. You caught me in my working week. Once a month I have a working week in Serbia at factories, which is
Okay.
nice.
How did this happen that you started this line? Where did it come from?
Kind of a mind shift came in 2016, and that's when we decided to start Mykke Hofmann, which was based on the pillars of sustainability and eco and social well-being and friendliness. So yeah, it kind of maybe it was a phase in our lives when we matured, and learned certain things, and then this was kind of the logical next step to happen.
There's something that I was thinking about. You mentioned like being there to check on the workers and
Yeah.
how they're being treated and how well they're being treated, and so how does that work into what you're doing? How do you protect them in that way and make sure that it works throughout the supply chain?
Yeah. So when it started, like in March, when all the factories had to close down in Bangladesh, and most of them actually Eastern Asian countries, and some of them in Turkey, because people pulled back, that was a super bad situation at that instance. And um, I think that the whole problem is much bigger due to the fact that everything is so like far away. You've never seen the faces of these people. Like the companies that work with them, they probably don't even know where the factory exactly is. Some of them might, but most of them, they're just like there's no identity. There's no face, there's no story behind it. And I think that us as humans, we unfortunately tend to, if we don't see things that are bad, we just don't see them literally, and we don't feel them. And I
Right,
think
right.
that, yeah, I think that if people would like care a bit more about at least looking into where they're working, what they're working with, and who these people are, they might develop a different kind of approach. So obviously, being in Serbia, we're within Europe, not in the European Union, but we're super close. There's an airport that connects all major European cities on a daily basis. Before COVID, obviously, but it's gonna get back there. And we have super short transportation ways, so it's much easier also for people that we work with, like on customer side, to see who we are, to come here and to visit us. And I mean, as I started, I was basically the customer. So I came as a brand and I wanted to produce. And then one day I decided that I want to do this on my own. And I want to buy a factory. It was a super crazy idea in that moment because we were still a super small brand, but I just did it. And we bought this factory 3 years ago, and that was the first time that I started realizing what production is and what it means, like what belongs to that, and how many hands and how many minds and how many hours of work just to get one piece of clothing produced entirely, not even to mention the supply chain and everything before that and the supply chain part after that. But I think that the aspect of working with the people has really made me aware of the values that they all belong together. Like if you have people that you care for and work with, and if you care for the environment, these people will also care for the environment with you, and they will care for having good fabrics, good products. They would also understand better, how to treat all of this in a sense that makes it more valuable, because the same people, they used to work for another person who didn't give a shit about all of that. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say that, but didn't really care much about ecological standards, and they did that as well. But in these terms, we also kind of, heard their stories, but they heard ours. We educated each other. And it's just super nice because in the end, it's people that with their hands and machines produce everything we wear. And
Yeah.
they're just, you don't see everything from a perspective of like smaller companies, not tiny small companies like mine, but like medium and smaller companies. And I totally agree that, I mean, first of all, to have to produce in Bangladesh, you have to have high quantities because it just doesn't make sense to produce there. So we're only talking about the big guys, no matter if it's high street fashion or if it's higher fashion whatsoever. Whoever needs to produce there is just in super high quantities. And then again, these are big corporations. And I totally agree with you that they need to be held responsible, but we can't expect them to be responsible, but you're totally right. We have to make them be responsible.
Right.
So it's like, you know, we can't expect of big corporations that really only look into money making to have, you know, this kind of thought on their own. But as a consumer, we can, or one can try to push it a little bit into that direction. Definitely.
Yes, and one of the ways we can do that is by supporting brands like yours. And
Supporting other brands, yeah.
you know,
Support brands that don't produce or don't necessarily. I don't want to only talk about Bangladesh. I mean, there's super bad situations in many other countries as well.
right.
Talking about Northern Africa,
What
talking
about
about.
the UK? That thing like who made my clothes, it does make a difference. We do need to think about those things. So even a billboard, just to have the idea, oh, you know what, it actually took somebody to make it, because we're so used to everything being automated anymore. In much of the Western world, we don't think about there's actually a person that does
Yeah,
these things.
true that. Yeah.
You know, we're disconnected in many
Mm.
ways from the earth and from reality. And I think that's one of the problems with our sustainability. And, you know, as we go forward with anything, is we're disconnected from our food sources. We're disconnected from everything. You know, that's how we've gotten ourselves in the climate crisis that we're in, is becoming disconnected from the earth and from what actually happens.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, I totally agree with everything you say because it's just super explanatory for every human being to understand that. Once you understand that our children nowadays, for example, when they see a chicken, it's in a supermarket packed in plastic, and you know, then if one day they see a chicken, a living chicken somewhere running around, they would never get this connection. With food, at least, there is a way you can do it. Like you can try and educate your children, and you know, go to a farm, show them animals, and try to explain to them how things work.
Mhm.
But I'm really trying to ask myself, like, how do we achieve this in regards of fashion and people? Because it's just super huge. It's super diverse. It's super difficult to like get a good start on the social aspect. I mean, we're
Absolutely.
totally getting there with you know, with like organic products, and people are understanding that nothing can be that conventional anymore, and we need to rethink the resources we use and how we produce them, and etc etc. But then the people side of it is just even more complex to
Mhm.
show, and it kind of pushes me to my limits as well, because um I don't even know how to, you know, you tell your story, and you know, you, like, we, for example, here in Serbia, we have a very fair regulated minimum wage, but we try to pay our workers 50% above that. We can't do more because we can't cash in more. Like,
Yeah.
uh, this doesn't sound super smart because I'm an entrepreneur, but here in Serbia with the production at the moment, we're always plus minus around zero. Like we just cover our costs, we pay our people, and that's enough, because that's a start for now. But
Right.
obviously I would also like to make some money at least, you know, and
Right.
that's the next step. Like, how do you make people understand that now we're working plastic free and with organic fabrics, and we're only sourcing, you know, like within the countries that are around us. We don't buy any resources from Asia anymore, not only because of the quality or the social aspect, but also because it's just so far away, and all the transportation, you know, the everything that it does to the environment, it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. But then, yeah, how do I make the people understand that also this aspect needs to be paid a bit more? You know, it's not like I'm using organic fabric, so my product is more expensive. Yeah, cool, okay, but what if I want to pay my people 50% more? Like, how am I going to make you understand that you need to pay for that? I think it's super difficult. Like, I'm finding it very difficult at the
I mean, that's another thing that I think that we as a society have started to learn and came into our collective consciousness, if you go with me in that phrase that's overused. But I think it really is a collective consciousness of all of us, that we thought about something that we've not ever thought about because of COVID, because that came out. What is essential? who
Yeah.
are the essential people. And
Yeah.
those essential people, you realize, oh my gosh, you know, all of those essential people jobs are basically minimum wage jobs.
Yeah.
How's
Totally.
how's that?
Totally.
How does that work?
And again, there needs to be so much more done that it really transform into change, because I think once this is all over, people are egoistic and they will just be like, okay, whatever, let's go on with our lives. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then is it really going to change, or are these people again going to have to go to the streets and demonstrate for their rights and for their wages? I
Possibly.
Maybe I'm being a bit pessimistic at the moment, but I don't really see that social change happening yet, really.
Probably on a precipice there. You know, we're
Mm.
right there at a kind of a point. We can either go
Yeah.
forward and move to where we want to go and where we think we should go, or we can roll back. But if we
Yeah.
roll back, the problem that we're going to run into is the fact that in a few years, especially when you're talking about, you know, the climate issues. And
Yeah.
if we're talking about the climate issues, then you have to bring in the human aspect to that and taking
Mm.
care of the workers and the people. Because if they
Mm.
don't have enough money to do things in a way that is
The right
sustainable
way. Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
then we're never going, if they still have to, like, that's
Yeah.
difficult. Like, now, how do you transport that kind of knowledge to everybody so that they can start understanding what it's going to take?
Mm.
It's not an easy solution. These are not simple solutions, and we have to
No.
look at it holistically. We have to look at the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. What's super important is, like you mentioned, no matter what industry we're in or whatever we do in life or what sector it is, the holistic approach is super important in total. And in terms of, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if I wouldn't care about how I buy food, or how I separate my garbage, or if I drive a car, how much I drive a car, when do I go by foot and take a bike, how often do I have to really take a plane a year, and how often do I need to take a plane a year, or for my own well-being. So this is something that is super easy for people like us that are well educated in these terms, and generally more educated. But if you look at, like, when I look at the people I work with here, they they can never in their lifetime come to the standard due to aspects of education, aspects of the wage they have, because even if they were educated enough to take these decisions, they wouldn't be able to afford them. So it's just a super huge work we all have to do here. And I think that if a lot of like-minded people from all sorts of industries would just gather together every now and then in certain ways whatsoever, to just try and talk about it and educate and help people to understand better, because everybody can make a little step. Like, I try talking to my colleagues here, like here in Serbia, it's still super common that the poorer people, they use a lot of plastic for everything. Like, they take plastic bags everywhere, they pack everything in plastic, and then they double it in plastic. And I tried showing them how these things can be done in a less bad way, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe we could try. It's just so super tiny,
Yeah.
but I don't know, if everybody tries to make a little tiny effort within their environment, we're going to get somewhere at least.
Right. I absolutely 100% agree. And that's the way it has to happen.
Definitely. But the first thing in everything is that we have to consume less.
You heard it here first, from an entrepreneur's lips to God's
Yeah,
ears.
of
You have
course.
to
I mean,
consume less. Like,
def-
this is from someone who owns a factory, people. He owns a factory.
definitely. Definitely. It's funny, actually. I had a conversation with a customer, a very, very cool brand actually. And I can't say the name now, but because we also produce for some other brands in our factories. And
Mhm.
these guys, they were growing kind of fast, and they suddenly wanted to place, like, for me, quite huge quantities. And I had to say no, because I was happy with what we had and how we could sustain our factory and our people and our business. And they were like so shocked, like, how, like, you say no to quantities? Like, everybody else was like, give us higher quantities. And then it's just the perspective you look from, like,
Mhm.
I would not be able to handle this with my mindset and the way I work. Like, I wouldn't be able to fulfill their needs with the way we work. Obviously, I have to wear clothes from my company, which I love, so I don't need much more than that. But I think that we all own
That is the benefit of being the
the
designer
benefit.
and manufacturer of a really cool clothing line.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit.
All right, I've got one last question and then I'm going to let you go.
Yeah,
And that's going to go back to our idea of, supply side or consumer side there. Where are
yeah.
we going to find our solution there for things in our supply chain? So where is it going to start? Is it the manufacturers? Is it the actual, farmers and producers of the textiles? Where is it that needs the most help starting in this big process that all has to change to become a circular, sustainable system?
Yeah, I think the biggest chance we have is that the brands themselves and the bigger companies take certain steps. And not only because it would be important that the bigger ones, the ones that also produce the most amount of waste and yeah, just bad outcome for everything. It would be great if they had a change, a true change. But on the other hand, also because they just have the audience. Like if brands like ours, if Mykke Hofmann, I mean, what we do, we try to help the consumers understand the people we communicate with. We give them a lot of information. We on every product we place detailed information about the fabrics, about the product. We have QR codes that lead to our ethical page where you can read about where we source, how we produce, how the pricing scheme is, who the people are we work with and everything. But this is a super tiny environment. I mean, we don't have that reach. So we need supporters. Brands like us and companies that are smaller just need a bigger base of people like-minded to communicate these kind of things. And then the consumers, they are much more important because once a single consumer understands this, he will talk to 5 other people, and these 6 people will educate themselves, and then they will take the right decisions. So I do believe that the consumer will make the change, but the start has to come from the bottom, actually, from the producers, from the factories, from the brands. Otherwise we won't get that click, and then it might spread
Mhm.
like kind of word of mouth system.
So we're going to need as consumers to be able to make them want to choose fabrics that they will actually want to talk about
Exactly.
and be able to
Yeah.
follow the smaller people like yourself model of, hey, this is where our stuff comes from. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it this way. This is why it cost this. This is who did what and how we got here. And these are all verifiable facts. And we're proud to tell you about it.
And it's
Right?
still super difficult because for small brands or for companies in general, it's, like when we buy fabrics, we have to trust certain people as well. Like we have to trust certificates, etc., etc. But at least that's a good start. Like we are not big enough to be able to have our own people who could go and really deeper into that and test all of this and whatsoever. But we have certain things that can, guarantee, okay, this is at least some good or even better. And I think by time when people start realizing more, it's going to be, a back and forth kind of movement, and we're going to help each other. We're going to help the consumer understand. He's going to help us spread the word. Others are going to understand they have to do the same, more or less. And then, everything is gonna go its way. It
One
should.
hand washes the other and we all get clean.
One, exactly. Well, if we ever get clean in this lifetime, I'm not sure, but at least cleaner. We can
Let's try.
get,
Let's try.
we can get try. Let's try
Yeah.
it.
Jelena, thank you very, very much. I appreciate all of your time and the
Thank you so
information.
much.
And I really do love your clothes. I am very, very proud of what you're doing. I've been an admirer for ages, and this has been a pleasure.
Thank you.